welcome back to Oral Communication in Context. For our 9th lesson, we will be discussing Part 1 of Fundamentals of Public Speaking. Now, the entire lesson for Fundamentals of Public Speaking will include the definition of public speaking, the elements of public speaking, the different types of speeches, which is divided into two according to purpose and according to delivery. And there are also types of speech that are delivered for different situations. So we will also be discussing all about them. For today, we will only be covering the first 3 topics, which includes a definition, the different elements, and the types of speech according to purpose. Have you ever listened or watched a TED Talk? After listening to an empowering speech, you may have noticed that aside from the speech content, their delivery was also essential to the success of their speech. The speakers seem so natural and at ease that you wonder how they have prepared for such a momentous event. Good delivery conveys the speaker's ideas clearly, interestingly, and without distracting the audience. Most audiences prefer delivery that combines a certain degree of formality with the best attributes of good conversation, animation, vocal and facial expressiveness, and a lively sense of communication. When you deliver a speech, you need to know exactly why you are saying it to your audience. If the purpose of your speech is clear, you will be able to deliver it effectively. Writing and preparing your speech is not the end goal, but presenting them to your audience is. Now, you already know that whenever you talk in front of a public or in front of a live audience, that could be considered as a form of public speaking. Okay, now how do we characterize it or how do we describe it? Public speaking is simply described as an act of preparing, staging, and delivering a certain type of presentation to an audience. So basically, you are presenting something to them. They have to learn or they have to get something out of it, whatever it is that you are trying to show them during this public speech. As I have mentioned earlier, public speaking usually involves communicating information before a large group of people. So this is not just simply 10 people, all right? It's not a small group of people, but rather a large group of people. Now, the thing that makes public speaking different from all the other speech contexts is that in public speaking, information that is being conveyed to the listeners, the information that is relayed to the listeners or to the audience is always purposeful. Meaning, it is usually meant to either inform, influence, or even entertain a group of listeners. So, the purpose or the intention is very clear from the onset of the public speaking act. Okay, so you already know what is it that you are supposed to do, what is the objective, what is the aim, what is the goal, even before you set foot in front of the audience. So the aim is very, very clear. Now let's take a look at these different elements that are involved whenever we communicate in public, or these are certain things that we really have to consider, to think about even before we deliver the speech. The first one is answering the question, who? Second is what? Third is whom? The fourth one is the medium. And then, of course, the effect. So let's talk about it one at a time. When we say who, it simply refers to the source of the message. Who will be speaking? Who will be delivering the public speech? Who will be standing in front of the audience and talking to them? All right, so it's very important to determine. If it is you, of course, there are certain considerations, certain preparations that you have to do before you could even stand in front of the audience and deliver the speech. Next, of course, is answering the question, what? What is the message? What is the context of the message? What are the information that could be found in the message itself? The kind of information that you are presenting, of course, will be aligned to the intent or to the objective of your speech. Next is, for whom is it? Whom is simply referring to the audience who will be listening to you, who will be sitting on those seats, lending their ears, looking at you while you speak. The medium now refers to your actual delivery method. How are you going to deliver the speech? How are you going to relay the information to that large group of audience? Are you going to be shouting it out loud, saying out loud, screaming it out loud, or are you going to be using voice amplification methods such as a microphone or a megaphone? And of course, you also need to think about or consider the effect that it will have to your audience. What is your intent for the speech? Is it going to be making them laugh? Is it going to make them think about something, consider something, or is it going to be influencing them to do something or motivating them to feel or be something? All right, so you have to think about that as well. Now let's go to the different types of speech according to purpose. So these are the types of speech that is aligned to a certain objective, certain intent. Now, the types of speech according to purpose include informative speech, inspirational speech, argumentative speech, persuasive speech, and entertaining speech. By the names of the speeches themselves, you would already be able to identify the purpose, the goal, the objective, or the intent of all of these speeches. But let's take a look at them one at a time. The first one is the informative speech. This is actually considered to be the most common type of speech. Of course, if you're just going to look at the name of the speech itself, you would already know that its main purpose is, of course, to inform. Therefore, informative speeches aim to teach the audience something new, give them something new, teach them something new, or even provide information that they believe the audience will think are worthwhile. When a speaker intends to deliver an informative speech, he or she must provide a clear understanding of a specific concept or a specific idea. When he or she does this, he or she is exposing the listener to the information that they do not know yet. Okay, so they are trying to give something new, trying to tell them, trying to teach them something that they do not know before. In order for a public speaker to deliver an effective informative speech as well, the information that he or she is presenting must be arranged in a clear, logical manner. So what do we mean by that? Clear, it's something that should be understandable to them, something that the audience would have no problem understanding, even if it came from another person. When we say logical, it only means that the information must be arranged in a specific order, an order that would enable the listeners to understand it better. Eventually, if your audience will be able to understand the topic better, they will also be led towards making conclusions as you intend them to be. Okay, so what do we mean by making conclusions as intended? We simply refer to their own understanding of whatever it is that they have read. So eventually, they could also make other people understand. Now, informative speeches also have different types. The first one is a demonstration or explanation informative speech. The second one is a definition informative speech. And the third one is a description informative speech. When we say demonstration or explanation, it is commonly known as the how-to speech or a process speech. So basically, from the name itself, it's trying to demonstrate something. It's trying to explain how one thing came to be, okay? That is why it's called the how-to or process speech. So in this type of informative speech, the speaker presents a process of how something works, how something is done, developed, operated, or even acquired. How to. In this kind of informative speech, it is essential that you use objects, tangible objects, visual aids, or even physical activities. You are moving as you are talking in order for you to enhance the explanation or the demonstration. This would allow your listeners to understand it better because you are accompanying it with gestures, you're accompanying it with visual aids. The next type of informative speech is what we refer to as the definition speech. Definition, by the term itself, you are simply defining something. You are giving meaning of words, phrases, or even issue which may be considered controversial or difficult to understand. You are simply giving meaning to what it is that you want to talk about. Last but not the least, we have description informative speeches. Now, this kind of informative speech is a type of public speaking engagement wherein a speaker draws a mental picture of what is being said in the mind of the listeners. Okay, you are trying to make them imagine. You would make the audience imagine how a particular object or how a particular event or an experience might feel like by giving descriptions. You are using mainly adjectives to describe that object, to describe that experience. Now, these are not simply normal, typical adjectives that you use every day. You have to make your descriptions as vivid as possible, as if you are allowing your audience to experience it with you, to see it for themselves, all right, to feel it for themselves as well. Here are some tips on how to become an effective informational speaker or informative speaker. First and foremost, you have to choose a topic that you know will be interesting to your audience. The audience is a very critical part of public speaking. All right? So you have to make sure that whatever it is that you want to relate to them, your audience will get something from it. Because if your audience, it's not something new to your audience already knows that, then it will not be interesting for them. They would not even want to listen to you in the first place. So make sure that if you want to deliver an informative speech, the topic is something that is interesting for your audience. Next, of course, is quality over quantity. You don't have to make it too long. Your speech doesn't have to be very detailed. You need to make sure that the quality of your speech is better. Keeping it simple, keeping it easily understandable by your audience is the trick. And in order for you to do that, of course, you have to use terms, words, phrases, sentences that you know your audience will understand. In informative speeches, there's a tendency for others to give too much information, okay? Because they want to support it. They want to be as credible as much as possible because they're the source of information. However, when we use facts and statistics in our informative speeches, you have to keep it in moderation. You need to make sure as well that you only stick to the purpose of providing information, nothing else. There is no other objective, there is no other goal but to provide information to your listener. Next is inspirational speech. Inspirational speeches, of course, aims to inspire, okay? And in doing so, they want to motivate an audience or even to help them be positive and optimistic. So you are trying to influence your listeners or your audience on a positive note, on a positive side. Now, inspirational speeches are helpful when we want our audience to have that desire, to grow that desire to achieve certain things. It could be their goals in life, or if you want them to be more faithful, uplift their faith in whatever it is, or even maximizing their potential. So you are trying to push them towards something that you know will be beneficial for them in the long run or in the future. Here are some tips on becoming an effective inspirational speaker. First and foremost, as an inspirational speaker, you need to speak from the heart. More often than not, inspirational speakers are people who others look up to because they have succeeded in doing something. They have succeeded in accomplishing something. So more often than not, the information that you present as an inspirational speaker rather is something that you have already experienced in the past, okay? And you know that people could learn from those experiences. So it's best that you speak from the heart. What was it that you felt? What was it that you experienced? Okay, be honest. You have to also first believe in your topic. If you do not believe in whatever it is that you are saying, then definitely your audience will feel that. So they will also not think that you are credible enough to stand in front of them and deliver this kind of inspirational or motivational speech. Next is keeping your audience's interest at its highest. Incorporate experiences, incorporate personal anecdotes, incorporate things that you know will pique your audience's interest. And of course, be at your best. If you are at your best, people will think that you are credible. People will rely on you better, okay? And of course, they will be inspired to become more like you in the future. It's one of the things that you could do to become an inspirational or an effective inspirational speaker. The third one is what we call an argumentative speech. So basically, in an argumentative speech, you are trying to argue, trying to debate about something. Okay, now argumentative speeches are very essential because more often than not, the goal, the intention is to convert the audience to agree about your point or your side, to side with you about this issue, about this particular topic. Argumentative speeches are often delivered when you want to center on controversial issues, wherein the speaker presents evidence supporting his claim of truth. So, when we say controversial issues, these are topics of conversations that people might agree or disagree with. Topics of conversation that might be thought of as bad or good. There will always be two opposing sides to it, or even more. As an argumentative speaker, your aim is to make your audience believe on your side. Believe that whatever it is you are saying is something that they could agree with, or something that is agreeable, or something that is good. Again, in argumentative speeches, the objective of the speaker is to arrive at the truth of the matter after presenting a logical series of reasons or evidence. In argumentative speeches, you need to always present evidence. You need to support your claims with pieces of evidence. And since your goal in argumentative speeches is to make your audience believe in whatever it is you're saying, okay, influence them to side with you need to make use of different appeals. In philosophy, we actually have three. The first one is what we refer to as logos, or appeal to reason. You are appealing to reason. Next is what we refer to, or what we call pathos, or appealing to emotions. And the third one is ethos, or simply appealing to character. When you are using logos or appealing to reason, it is a kind of a rhetorical strategy used to lead an audience to make a conclusion that is based on facts that you are presenting. So take for example, if you want your listeners to side with you, to believe in you, you present them with facts. Okay? Now, those facts, when you do that, you are appealing to their mind, to their critical thinking. That is why it's called logos. You are appealing to reason because they have to believe in you because these are facts. Others are already considering this as truth. All right? So, that could be the case. So, take for example, when you ask your father to stop smoking, when you want your father to stop smoking. So, if you want to appeal to his reason or use logos, you can say, please stop smoking because research suggests it may cause cancer and eventually lead to death. How about if you are appealing to emotions? Now, pathos, it's a strategy that is used to persuade an audience by targeting their feelings. So you are moving past those facts. Okay, you are now targeting their emotions, trying to use their emotions in order for them to side with you. So, for example, let's go back to the initial example that I used. What if you are trying to make your father stop smoking? Okay, so as a daughter, you would say, if you want to appeal to his emotions, please stop smoking because I don't want to lose my father at such a young age. Okay, that could be appealing to emotion. Ethos, on the other hand, or appealing to character, is a strategy that is used when you want to persuade an audience based on the character or the credibility of the persuader or a speaker. Okay? So, how do we do that? Now, as a daughter, again, if you want to appeal to character, you can use in this kind of appeal, you can also use the credibility or the character of others. Okay? So take for example, as a daughter, you can say, please stop smoking and listen to what the doctors say. They know what they are doing. Okay? So you are trying to use the credibility, the character of the doctors here. So your father must believe in them. Another type of speech according to purpose is what we refer to as persuasive speech. It aims at convincing an audience to believe or adapt to something. Okay, it attempts to influence not only the audience's beliefs but also its attitudes and behavior. If a while ago you are only simply changing their stand, their position on a particular issue or a particular topic, in persuasive speeches, they are now gonna be expected to act upon that information. So there's an immediate effect on them. Okay, now these type of speech can make people apply what they have learned or do the action immediately or even in the future. Here are some tips on becoming an effective persuasive speaker. Of course, you need to establish your credibility. Next, convey your subject with passion and enthusiasm. This will allow your listeners to engage in you. This will allow your audience or your listeners to believe that whatever it is that you are saying, you are dedicated to it. All right? Now, in part of becoming an effective persuasive speaker, you also need to make sure that whatever it is that you are presenting to them is something that is doable. It's something that is possible, feasible to happen. Okay? Because if it's not, then definitely no one would believe that it is true. Next, we have entertaining speeches. Entertaining speeches is a kind of speech according to purpose that is usually short and delivered just to make sure that the audience is having an enjoyable and relaxing experience. So by the term itself, entertaining, it has to entertain them. More often than not, entertaining speech is set apart from the others because it uses humorous stories and funny anecdotes with the help of comic illustrations. Okay, so its main goal is to make the audience laugh, to make them at ease, okay, while listening to you. Basically, the main intention of an entertainment speech is to please the crowd, make them happy and hold their attention while making a point that is usually coated with humor. Here are some tips on becoming an effective entertainment speaker. The first one is what you can do is you can open with an anecdote. You can start your speech with something that would pique the interest of your listeners. So what do we mean by anecdote? Something that could have happened to someone or something that have personally happened to you. Explain the point of this. Why are you even including this one? Usually it's because this experience leads to the point of your speech. Now, spread your anecdotes evenly throughout the speech. You don't have to just start with it or just end with it. You can just spread out the story all throughout. Conclude by restating your central point. What was the speech all about, basically? And of course, finish with a great anecdote to ensure a memorable ending. Always end your speech with something that your listeners would clap about, something that you know they can take home, something that you know that they could pick up eventually. Here are the sources and references for this lecture. Thank you for joining me